Hello and welcome back to the HCW YouTube channel. My name is DP, Dan Dupreezy, and I am going to be your host for tonight's UK Indy Spotlight / wrestler interview. I am DP, as I said, and I am joined by a special guest.
That's me.
That is you.
That is me.
Mr.
Hi.
Oliver Sudden.
How do? How are we?
Not too bad, not too bad. Pleased to have a chance to speak with you. How about you?
I'm doing better. It's thinking freezing cold at the minute.
And I know you're on your one layer.
Well, I couldn't be sat here in like 12 layers like this. You just see a little peer of me like this.
Like, you can't see me, but I'm wearing my hoodie underneath, and underneath that is like two other t-shirts. So
There, but it's not an all of a sudden t-shirt now on sale.
link in bio.
I mean, just Twitter DM me and I will send you one.
If you do 4XL, I'll absolutely hit you up. But no, this is our UK Indie Spotlight, UK wrestler interviews, how you want to refer to it as, where we just shine the spotlight on wrestlers who are on the Brit Rest scene, who come from Brit
I
Rest.
fit the criteria.
Exactly, all the boxes have been ticked.
Step one done. Step two, world domination.
Hell yeah. Okay, so just a series of questions regarding, like your beginnings, your origins, training, etc. So first thing that we ask is, what, to your recollection at least, is your first wrestling memory? So in regards to, what made you want to be a wrestler, or what made you first enjoy wrestling as a whole?
It's a bit, for me, I always find mine is a bit random. So I used to play rugby when I was younger, and like every Friday night after we finished training, me and my closest friend on the team, we'd take turns and we'd crash over each other's houses. Just all sorts of, like, every Friday he'd crash at mine. Loud noises in the background. Terrible. But yeah, he'd crash over mine, I'd crash over his. And the one time I stayed over his, he just had wrestling on. I'd never really seen what it was, like knew what it was, seen what it was. We'll give it a go. Like he said, oh, we'll watch a bit of this, then we'll play on my new game, which was SmackDown versus Raw, like the original SmackDown versus Raw game.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, oh, all right, we'll give it a go, give it a watch. And again, like I have different vague memories of what the first match I ever saw was. But from what I remember the best is it was the Hell in a Cell 3-on-2 tag match of DX versus the McMahons and Big Show. So one of my first wrestling memories is Mr. McMahon's head being shoved up Big Show's ass.
Fantastic.
So it was one of those I was like enthralled by it. I loved it, and I was just thinking, this is great. Like, that's kind of where my love for it came from. Like, I've always loved characters in anything.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing something like DX made me kind of go, oh, what's this? It kind of stuck me from there then.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, probably not as traditional as many people who say, oh, well, when I saw Brett and Sean and when his head got shoved up an arse, I was there.
You knew right then. That was the industry for you.
That was the career. To be fair, I didn't even think at the time. I probably didn't even think I'd be able to do it. It was just kind of, I don't know what this is. This is amazing. I was trying to watch it then as often as I could, whether it was like the odd video here and there that we found, or staying up late at 3 a.m. to watch a pay-per-view for free on Sky Sports or something.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of stuck with me from there then.
Fair enough. Yeah. I can imagine your world was open when you saw Rikishi's gimmick.
Oh no, I didn't see that one until a few years later. But God.
But moving on to, let's just to keep it a little bit, like, switch up between wrestling and outside of wrestling. What would be your first, how do I say it? First instance of be it training or attending shows, etc. So like something like that.
So my first show that I ever went to. So if I disregard any like WWE shows, 'cause I think a lot of people went because I don't really have a big memory from my first WWE show. It was just
Hmm.
kind of I went with a mate. We sat up in the nosebleed seats. It was pretty cool. The first show I remember going to was a Welsh wrestling show in Caerphilly, where I live.
Hmm.
It's literally about 20-minute walk from like my house. I saw he was coming to Caerphilly, so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna see what it's like. I tried to convince a mate to go with me, but he didn't want to. So I just went on my own, walked down, bought a ticket, watched it. It's kind of mad looking. Like I've still got a signed poster from that show, from everyone who was on it, and it's kind of mad looking back. So like I had James Mason was one of the first wrestlers I fully remember from that show because he was the typical English heel in a Welsh town, and he was giving aggro to the crowd. The crowd were giving it back, and I just remember thinking that was amazing.
Hmm.
And then I also on that show was also what was her name? Miss Ruby. She wrestled as, who is now known as Tegan Knox
Oh.
in WWE. So that was
Hmm.
pretty cool as well as Nathan Daniels, who later became Danny Jones.
Hmm.
So it's kind of I even think Wild Boar was on it as well. So that's kind of I look back at it.
Hmm.
That's kind of mad that to me at the time I didn't have a clue who they were, but now looking back I'm thinking that's pretty cool.
That is, yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's just that and it kind of stuck with me from there. Then like I'd met them afterwards. I'd like got the photos, got the print signed and everything, and just loved it from there. Then really,
Cool. Yeah, so that sounds like an amazing sort of thing to look back on and be like, oh wow, I've seen
Mm.
these people, you know.
I mean, there's some other wrestlers on there who I don't think wrestle anymore, but I can't remember who they are off the top of my head.
That's fair enough. Um, so going into when you started
Mhm.
training itself, what was your first training school academy sort of?
So my original training school, literally until the pandemic, I'd always been with Dragon Pro Wrestling.
Hmm.
It was kind of I'd been googling for a little while, and I'd seen Welsh wrestling had something, but it was like every 2 weeks, and it was in Port Talbot, and it was a long way to go. And I remember eventually I seen Dragon Pro on just googling and websites, and Dragon Pro came up. So I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Looked into it, looked through the website, looked like emailed them, asked them about training and things like that, and kind of like I kind of emailed everything. I was like, oh, that's cool. Then kind of just went out my mind for a
Hmm.
bit, and this is where I always find my coming into trainings goes a bit random, as I went to a book signing years ago for Lee Evans, the comedian.
Hmm.
Again, typical story of myself. I arranged to go with people. People ditched me last minute, so I went on my own.
Okay.
And when I was in the queue, I was like, we were there for a few hours, so just obviously started chatting to the people around me. And one of the guys who was next to me was a wrestler. He doesn't wrestle anymore. He'd wrestle, but he was wrestling at the time. And we started chatting, and he re-mentioned Dragon Pro to me. So we spent the whole day just chatting, getting to know each other. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. Like, sod it. I'll give it a go. This time I did manage to convince friends to go down, so I didn't actually have to go on my own. But I remember just turning up, thinking, God knows what's going to happen today. What am I going to walk into? Is it going to be a big, massive room with a wrestling ring in and gym equipment, everything like that? And I got to Newport, a tiny little place called the Share Centre. I walked in. There was nothing in the room. I was about, have I got the right place? Turns out they did a show the day before. We had to go get the ring from the van.
Ah.
So my first experience was quite literally setting up a wrestling ring. Bearing in mind I'd never done anything like that in my life, and it was just kind of just grab stuff and start putting stuff up. I was like, okay, and it just kind of went from there. Then, so I like trained on and off And then it wasn't until I'd gone to uni, when I had a lot of extra time, bit of spare money, I thought it was the perfect time. It was only like a 20-minute train from where I was in uni, so I ended up going like 3 times a week.
Fair
So
enough.
yeah, a bit like I was my entrance into it. I always find very random compared to other people,
Hmm.
but it's me and I liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and obviously it's your story to tell as well. Like it's very different compared to, as you say, it's very different to, the usual thing that you'd hear as well.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to have that air of mystery and that air of uniqueness as well.
Hmm.
Um, so keeping on that same track of things, if you can, that is, or want to even, who ran uh, Dragonborough and who are you like your trainers and.
So when I originally started, obviously it was Mike Birdie was taking it. He was in charge. He was the man for it all. And then a couple of weeks into my training, he went through a couple of personal life issues, and he just needed to take a step back for a bit. So my training suddenly went from having Mike Bird to having Mark Andrews. Literally about I think it was about 2 months before he was signed to TNA as well. So I had literally it was a lot of it was on mats because we couldn't get the ring up and down every single week. So I just started training, like just grappling and learning how to roll and doing all the basics that you do in wrestling. And I learned him with Mark Andrews, who again, if now looking back at the time, I'm relatively good mates with him now, but at the time it was a bit like, oh, this is bloody cool. It would just be, it was just every week show up, set the mats up, and I had Mark. I was training with Mark Andrews, which was pretty cool. And then obviously Birdie ended up coming back, and we moved places like 4 times. I think no, was it 4? Yeah, about 4 times actually. So we went to one place in Newport. We went to a gym in Newport. Then we went back to the first place, and then we ended up in the leisure centre for probably about a solid year and a half. And that's where like bulk of my training came from. So there was all with Mike Bird until I'm trying to think now. My timelines are terrible, so you'll probably have to forgive me on like muttering and jumping back and forth all the time.
That's fine.
Because then we had I can't remember the full reasoning, but it was to the eventual point that Wild Boar took over then, and we got our own little unit in just like the like dirtiest, grubbiest little part of Newport. It was like a freezing cold unit, like holes in the wall, just a terrible, really rundown place. But it was our unit, and that's where I had my Wild Boar then taking all the training.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I bounce back and forth. So many people like, remember this. Who took me then? Ah!
um. So, following on from that as well, another thing that we always try to ask is, what was your like earliest what's the word? Earliest sort of achievement within wrestling, like something that you consider to be an achievement.
I think just genuinely for me, my first achievement was when I debuted. Just like my first experience of actually doing stuff on a show.
Yeah.
So it was. It wasn't anything amazing. It wasn't anything. I didn't go out and have a 5-star classic 30-minute match that tore the house down. It was what a lot of us at the time did. My first ever match related thing was in a rumble, and I just remember it was the weeks running up to it. A lot of the trainees had already been spoken to, because we were slowly announcing 30-man rumble, so it was the chance for majority of it was going to be trainees with a couple of other people obviously thrown in to be like there to kind of guide us and do everything. And I remember for a while I was feeling a bit down because no one had said anything to me, and we were chatting. We were just we happened to be at training one day, and we were chatting about the show,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the guys who used to like help run the school was just like, "So, the Rumble, people spoken to you?" And I went, "No," and he went, "Oh, a minute," kind of disappeared off for 5 minutes, and then came back and went, "Come to the office." So I had to kind of walk over and then say, "Oh, so we are putting you in the Rumble. You're getting your debut. Sort out yourself out some gear. This is where you need to find your music. This is where you need to find your name, more importantly as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like, this is a payment for all your hard work."
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of, for me, there was that moment of, as cliche as it sounds, it was like the moment I'd walked through the curtain, and it just felt like everything I'd done for like the year and a half previous in training, it all kind of paid off. It all worked out for me. So I always just find that as my biggest achievement, because I never thought I'd even get a match like for a long time, and then getting to do it again with a lot of my close friends as well at the time was just, it was something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine. So on that note, actually, you mentioned about finding your music and finding your name. So that was on to our next question. The origin of your in-ring name. I hear it and I think of the saying.
Cool. Well, that's
one
of my favourite things about it, especially if I'm in a conversation and someone says, "Oh," and then all of a sudden I just go, "Eh." It sticks in your mind. But then there's even, you got to, like this, you'd be surprised, there's a lot of people who don't even realise it's a pun. I was speaking with someone before, and they'd heard my name being said, and they went, "Oh yeah, I get it now." I was like, "See?" But I've said it before. So I've told a few people recently. As much as I would like to take credit for it, it wasn't actually me who came up with the name.
Oh.
So it was when I was in uni at the time, and obviously it came close to that time to like find the name, and I was like, "Oh well," like they kind of said, "Don't use your name. Like, your name's not bad, but like have something different, sets you apart." Then.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember just thinking, I was like, right, I want to stick to Oliver, because I'm stupid enough that if I wrestled as, say, Luke, for example, which is like my middle name, people could be shouting Luke to me, and I'd be like, that. I just kind of forget I'm not, like, I'm Luke in that situation. So I was like, right, I need to keep Oliver, but I need a name to go with it. And I went to all of the terrible cliches. Oh, I could be Oliver Slammer. Ooh, Oliver Smash. Like, just trying to think of something that kind of sounded right, that fit.
Like sort of combat words and...
Yeah, just looking, I was thinking, what's a wrestling word? What can I use? And I just remember like racking my brain for ages about it. And it was one of my housemates I was on the same course with. And he just kind of, we were joking around about stuff. And he went, what about all of a sudden? Because it sounds like all of a sudden. It's a pun, you're funny. And I went, that's amazing. Literally, I went to training the next day. I put it forward to them. I was just like, "How do you feel about all of a sudden?" And they were all just kind of like, "It's really good. It's different. It sets you apart. Yeah, let's go with all of a sudden." It was like, it just kind of rolled from there then, because I used to get everything from it. So, it happens all of a sudden. All of a sudden, I'm here. All of the comedy. As much as I'd love to take credit for it, it was just one of my uni mates. I paid him back in the end. I gave him a free T-shirt, so he was happy.
Nice. Yeah, I can imagine sort of like hearing it for the first time in that sort of like that, that cliche cartoon sort of light bulb appears over the head sort of thing. Like,
yeah. Well, like, the best way I can describe how I used to do a lot of things in training was quite kind of flamboyant or over the top. It was like very like arm flaily, a bit of a jig in it, and they were all like, you move very over the top. So then it kind of, after I got the name, it kind of rolled onto its very cartoon character, which is kind of where it went from there then.
Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely.
I told you, this is I get weird stories out of it.
all the better for it, honestly. Like, sometimes it's better to be than the normal like bread and butter, like.
And it kind of worked for me. Oh, God, hit my computer.
Oh,
Um,
oh no, we crashed
it
it.
kind of worked for me because, again, I didn't particularly just want to have to go through like loads of different name changes and loads of different characters and bit I could be Oliver on one show and then Derek the masked wrestler on the other, and so I always wanted a name that kind of stuck, and that's kind of where I've got to the point now.
Yeah.
Mm.
Fair enough. So to sort of like keep it fresh again and go back and forth between outside and inside. Obviously, you take part in a lot of matches and you're involved in a lot of, wrestling, as it were.
Why? Since when? You didn't tell me.
What do you do? Sorry. What do you do in your free time to unwind, relax? Are you like a music listener, TV, film sort of thing, or?
To be honest, a bit of everything. At the minute, I don't particularly have a lot of free time. I work in a pub. It's getting close to Christmas, so a lot of my time's taken up with that. But when I do get the chance, I like sitting back, just watching random things on Netflix, or playing the brand new Pokemon game, or just watching, doing whatever, just doing nothing. It just keeps me happy, to be honest. Like, I'm more than happy just to kind of have a day where I don't have to go out and sit. Like, sometimes I love going out and doing everything that I can, but sometimes it's just nice waking up, making a cup of tea, and just going, I'm just going to do nothing today.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, absolutely. That is sometimes the best way to live to spend your day.
Exactly. Like, I'm not fussy. I'm not like, right, I have a day off. I need to go and do this. I need to go and do this. But I say I have a day doing nothing. To be fair, I spend a lot of day trying to plan like classes because I help run the training at No Mercy Wrestling as well. So I spend a lot of my time trying to figure out what we're going to do this week, what we're going to do on the weekend. How can I help people more, and how can I help myself as well? So
Yeah.
again, it's kind of going on. So I don't have a lot of free time.
So to move forward a bit in time from your training, you mentioned before with the global pandemic, and obviously it affected a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Just the question basically is, how did it affect your training or your coursework, your uni work, or did it affect you in any way whatsoever, or was everything sort of normal for you?
So it's kind of a mix, to be honest. So as we were on the run up to the pandemic, like I'd finished uni. I'd been out from uni for a while, so that was fine. And wrestling was slowly starting to pick up for me, but kind of I was feeling very worn down and like kind of not. I don't want to say fed up with it, but just kind of I felt like I needed a break.
Yeah.
It was just a few little things happening here and there, and it was just getting in my head a lot about it. So I was considering taking like a couple months off, like no training and no shows, no training, just have a bit of time to myself, and then get back to it. Kind of my only thought then was, if I do that, it'll kind of taking a massive step backwards. Will I be able to re-pick up any traction I currently have, sort of thing? So for me, the pandemic kind of happened at a good time, so I could kind of take a step back.
Yeah.
Just because everyone was taking a step back, but then it made me then start to realize, like after the first month, it made me realize how much I missed training and being around people and things like that. So as I used to train like 2 to 3 times a week, it would be a lot of my evenings. I'd be finishing work, going straight to Cardiff, train, come home. Like I'd barely see my partner. So it would be a lot of late nights getting back from training and different things like that. But it was just as the pandemic kind of went on, I realized how much I missed it. So like I'd started working out routines. I started running because I was thinking, right, when this is over, I'm coming back in the best shape I can be. I had a lot of help from Dan Jones. He got me a good training regime and program for it as well. We did we did a couple of online sessions as well with Dragon Pro, which was good. We did match reviews. A couple of people did workouts together, like through Zoom and things like that.
Yeah.
So it made me realize how much I missed wrestling if it wasn't around. So it happened. The pandemic happened at the perfect time because it gave me the little break I needed, but then it also kind of lit a fire under me of going, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be.
Yeah.
So it kind of motivated me more that when we came back, I wanted to do as much as I could.
Yeah. So, were there companies that were doing wrestling? Like, because obviously the pandemic affected it in a lot of ways. So I'm from London myself. So obviously we had companies like Progress. They were doing their lockdown shows.
Yeah,
with no fans and all that. So was everything similar in your area?
As far as I'm aware, it wasn't. The only people that were doing shows, I use that term very loosely, weren't really following rules and were the kind of people who say, COVID's not real. I know my friend who had a jab and their toes fell off and different things like that. So there wasn't an awful lot going on. And we were kind of the time with Dragon Pro, we were training in a community centre in Cardiff. So it kind of, even when some stuff started to ease, it wasn't as simple for us to be able to go back to training and restart like a lot of places did, because we didn't have our own place, our kind of own facility.
Yeah.
So we had to wait on a lot of rules to be lifted and to come back. So as far as I was aware, there wasn't really anything going on. So a lot of it was just a case of do what you can at home, be safe, and then we kind of got the advice that while some stuff was reopening and some people were going to do certain things, whether it was like the Progress style shows or things like that, whatever you're doing, just be careful.
Yeah.
Look after yourself. Keep as safe as you can with it all, really. So it literally wasn't until majority of the rules were lifted did we end up actually being able to go back to some form of training.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I missed, it was again, there was parts of me that was oh, I wish someone would just set up a show somewhere so I could go to, or I could do. I don't drive, so it's not like I could go, right, I'm gonna cross into England and I'm gonna go to this place because they have their own wrestling school and I just need to train and everything again. It was just kind of, for me, it was kind of unfortunate thing that I'd probably not be able to actually wrestling train for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I kind of had to accept it, but do what I could in the meantime.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair enough. Yeah, as you say, there's a lot of areas that were just sort of shut down and a lot of things just sort of closed because of that and because of the guidelines in place as well, which meant that you couldn't have places open. But yeah, absolutely. So moving on from that quite swiftly. So we go forward now, and with your, I believe, current promotion / training school. Is that right?
I wonder what it is. I wonder who I'm currently involved with.
Who could it be?
That's right. It's Evolution Wrestling. No, I'm joking. It's no Mercy Wrestling. Convenient, or was what I set out to do. It's kind of everything just kind of fell into place, sort of thing. So as everything started reopening, particularly because of speaking out, what basically Dragon Pro was done. We all still spoke, and there was still kind of, eventually we could do something, but because of the impact of speaking out, it was kind of decided that Dragon Pro won't be coming back for quite a while. And I just remember it was so hearing that and knowing that, it was always kind of a bit of oh, right, well, I need to figure out where I'm going to be able to train, where I'm going to be able to go, what can I do? And I just remember being out. I was out on a night out with my stepdad, We were just going for a drink in a local pub, and I'd seen someone I know had shared like a photo of like the cliched photo of boots in a wrestling ring. I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I wonder where he's gone.
Yeah.
And I just saw at No Mercy Wrestle. So I was like, oh, let's have a look, see where it is. So I found the Twitter page. I was like, oh, that's cool. Someone's set up a new place. Wonder where it is. Oh, it's in Caerphilly. Oh, it's a 20-minute walk from my house. Oh, this is pretty cool. So I think there and then, even after I'd had a couple of drinks, so God knows what my first few messages were like, I was just like, I am a wrestler. What do you do? And it was basically Bevan, the bastard son Bevan. He had set up this unit just with the intention of, I have a wrestling ring. If you give me a little bit of money, you can come and train in said wrestling ring. And I lost my mind a bit, to be honest. I was like, finally! Oh! So I'd messaged, I'd organised it. I went down with another wrestler, and I trained for my first time properly in like a year and a half. And good God, I died. I remember I didn't even do that. And I just remember being so out of breath. I was thinking, as much better shape as I've gotten into, that is nothing on wrestling shape and like wrestling cardio. I did a couple of things that we used to do, and I was like on the floor, like wheezing, just like it was unreal. It was something else. But it's kind of snowballed from there. I started going open sessions every now and then. So I met a couple of other local wrestlers. So I met obviously I'd met Bevan, first time I'd met him. We got on like a house of fire. He's about to walk past me because the wife has come home from work and she has McDonald's. Say hello, Bevan.
Apologies, I've just got to... I'll be back through in a minute.
Terrible.
So
I met
it's a cameo.
He's going to expect like me to pay him for that. So yeah, I met Bevan. I met wrestler Sammy Phillips, who's new, like he's relatively new on the scene now, and he's slowly starting to get there. Kenny Mantra, I met Ethan Thomas, like a lot of the new local boys from around here who I'd never met before, and we kind of evolved into every Thursday for between 2 to 4 hours. We just met up and we trained. Sometimes we didn't really do an awful lot of good training. A lot of it was, here's a crash mat, let's jump off a top rope, yay! But then from their kind of standpoint, because they were all relatively new, they wanted to learn more, and I had a little hand in helping them, which was quite nice.
Yeah.
It just kind of kept snowballing from there. Like, Bevan will tell you himself, if you ever speak to him about it, he never had any intention of actually starting a training school. The original intention was, I have a ring and a unit, have at it. But he had so many messages of just being, so do you run training? Do you run training? Do you run training? It kind of went, oh, let's give it a go. Let's give it a crack. So again, it kind of snowballed from there. I wasn't originally involved in taking training or in any way, shape or form like that. Yeah. I went on my Thursdays. I did the odd other bit when I could. I let them kind of crack on with it. And I won't bore you with the full details, and I'm not here to bring anyone down or bring up the past of anything, but the lad who was taking training, we'd had a bit of, like, him and Bevan had a bit of a falling out, and probably for the best, he took a step away. Like, that's just how it was. It was very adult, grown up. Step away, no bad words, negativities and shouting on Twitter about it. It was just one took a step away, and Chris needed someone to help run training, and I kind of stepped in. Oh, and he's back. You heard his name, and he's back.
What will you be saying about me?
How I took over your training, just kind of accidentally.
Oh, good. I hope it's all good stuff. And the pinnacle of every wrestler's diet, McDonald's.
I am an athlete. Yeah, it just so again the guy stepped away. Chris needed someone to help out, so I originally agreed. Oh, like I know a bit. I'd had some good training over the years. I'd been around for 6 years at the time. I can help. I can probably help people. And I was only meant to help out for a few weeks until we figured out a new head trainer. And then that was about 6 months ago now. Here I am, still currently taking training. It seems to be going well. I've had a couple of guys doing very well recently. So just kind of going from there now. Seeing what we can do, running shows, running training, getting everything going now.
Yeah, why not? Get us all complete stuck in.
Exactly. We're gonna have our own PC. We're gonna get on TV, syndication.
Yeah,
Gonna run the world.
Sam HQ in Greenwich, Connecticut, or Jacksonville, Florida, if you want.
Let's stick to Caerphilly. No one's in Caerphilly.
That's fair.
We'll just have a unit and some heating, and that's all you need.
Fair enough. So I move on now to the post. I'm sure you saw it that we put out about questions.
Yes.
So we have a question from friend and co-host of the show, Rate Wrestle, who he asks, who would you say is your toughest opponent so far?
I'd say my toughest opponent. It's how I think toughest now, but it'd probably be Brendan White. I've wrestled him a couple of times. We've done a couple of like camp shows together. I've wrestled him on a couple of shows, and it's got to be Brendan because he's on another level of wrestling. Like obviously now he's running New Wave and training and everything as well. Like I'd known him for years, and every match I'd had with him, I learned so much from him. He was another for me. He was another level in wrestling, and it was kind of. It was always a tough. Like when I knew I was working with Brendan, I kind of knew, right, I've got to put the work in today. I can't just like I don't want to say I float by every match anyway, but like I need to put 100% effort in there because I want this match to be good. And then sitting and chatting with him after these matches and the feedback that he'd help give me and the feedback I get off other people from watching the matches, it was always like some of the most constructive things I'd ever had. So I'd always look forward to working with him, but I always knew it was going to be a tough one because also he has a meaty forearm. I saw White once. I was like, Brendan White, hey. But yeah, like it'd probably be Brendan White then for that.
Fair enough. There you go, Rick. That's your answer.
So tag him in it. Let him know.
Get him on the show. Have him face you in a face-to-face verbal conflict.
Oh, he loves me really. I'll give him a big cuddle when I see him. Oh, do you want like that? Just like that. Wave hello. Go because that, mind you, I say one of my favourite things about Brendan, and I love to annoy him every year about it because I know it's coming up soon. On his 30th birthday, we had a Dragon Pro show. I wrestled Brendan on his 30th birthday, and in front of all his friends and family, he lost, and he hates that fact. He hates that fact. I wind him up every year. I send him a photo, just like, "Hey, Brendan, remember."
So just sort of poking the bear, like, "Hey, remember this? Remember this? Remember this?"
Remember me?
I love it.
Yeah.
So to come back again to going a bit backwards in time, I guess. When we talk to wrestlers, a lot of them say how their friends and family weren't that supportive of the venture. Did you have that same issue, or was it more like you had like more encouraging people around you for your network, or
When I started originally, mum and dad always kind of took the mick of, "Oh, you go into your wrestling again, are you? Oh, you go into your weird wrestling." And then it wasn't until after they actually saw me do a show and they went, "You're actually pretty good at this. You quite like this, don't you?" So they kind of stopped taking the mick out of me. My girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, who we just saw on camera, she's always been very supportive of me. She was always kind of the one who was like, "Yeah, go for it." Like, always pushed me to go for it, make sure I go to training. She'd come to every local show that I was on. First one to have a t-shirt, never paid for a t-shirt, but she was always the first one to have a t-shirt. She's always been very supportive of me.
yeah,
So yeah, I've had kind of like a mix. Like, I still get the odd person who's a bit like, really, like some family, but
yeah,
majority of it seems to be relatively positive now. So I'll take that.
that's good. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the final things that we always ask as well, because we're coming towards the end, I know you've got food waiting for you probably as well. So
How did you know?
I've got a camera set up in the house. No, who? Wait, let me read it again. That's fine. Yeah. Who is your current / all-time favorite wrestler that you could, but like potentially even have a face-to-face with in the ring during their prime, if they're
just one wrestler, or
it hasn't got to be one, but try and keep it a short list if possible.
I'll say three.
Okay.
I'll be on my top wrestler list changes on like probably a weekly or sometimes a daily basis. But if I went for my top three right now, William Regal in his prime,
Fair.
because Regal is probably one of the greatest wrestlers to come out of Britain. His knowledge, everything, he is just on another level. He is something else. Number two was, kind of gotta say it, it's The Undertaker. Like, imagine wrestling The Undertaker. It would be unreal. And number three, which I like to think is still slightly possible, but I probably would never have it, is Colt Cabana. As you can probably tell from a lot of my wrestling, I take a lot of inspiration from Colt Cabana, and I like how he does it. He's one of the best comedy wrestlers in the world, and I'd love one day to be able to lock up with him, but like it probably won't happen, but I'd love to eventually throw it out into the universe and be like, "Hi, Colt Cabana, wrestle me."
Honestly, like I don't think that's impossible, honestly.
I mean, if Bevan has a big enough paybook and wants to bring him over.
How much money do you think I have?
You want to get a loan now?
No.
No. Well, it's not happening then.
Well, you tried.
Anything is possible in No Mercy Wrestling.
Yeah, no mercy. Yeah, they'll be my three for now. Ask me in a week, and they will be completely different.
I will tag you on Twitter in a week's time, and after that, and after that. just keep track of it all.
Well, it's just as long as you know. That's all I ask.
Fair enough. So with that in mind, that brings an end to this UK Indy Spotlight, Spotlight, how you want to call it. I've been DP, and I have been joined by...
All of a sudden, yay!
There he is!
The conductor of the crazy train. It happens all of a sudden. Such a mark for myself, it's unreal.
Oh, it's great though. It's so great. But where can the people find you on social medias?
Social medias, I'm on the Twitters as All of a Sudden, well, Mr. All of a Sudden. I'm All of a Sudden PW on Instagram. I'm there on Facebook, even though I very rarely update it because I'm very forgetful. You'll find me on any No Mercy Wrestling show coming soon. If this is out before December 18th, Penrith Khyber Hall. What's it called, Chris?
Cobra Khyber Christmas.
Cobra Khyber Christmas. That's the one.
Oh, yeah.
You'll hopefully see me in a lot more places next year. BCCW, I'm coming for you. Many other places, hopefully. Yeah, everywhere.
Fantastic. And have you got any issues at the start, like with merch? Have you got like a merch store or like an online shop, or?
I haven't got a set merch store or online shop at the minute, but I do have some lovely t-shirts on sale, which I need to repost online again. If anyone is interested in buying a shirt or even a print, just drop him a DMs, and I'm sure we can sort something. Or I should probably pull my finger out and set up a shop like normal wrestlers do.
Fair enough. But yeah, with that in mind, I will let you get to your food. This has been me, DB. This has been Oliver Southern, and this has been the UK Indy Spotlight with HCW. See you guys in the next one.
Bye.
Peace.